Although I don't see many people doing this, Procreate can be a very powerful tool for traditional artists, not just digital artists. In this video, I show you how I use Procreate to plan out my artworks, help me choose color schemes, help me mix the correct paint colors, grid my reference photo, check the accuracy of my drawings and my paintings, and more. Hi, my name is Lily. I am a high school art teacher and a digital and traditional artist. I first used Procreate just for digital art, but then the more I started using it as a tool while I was painting, I found that there was actually a lot of uses that I hadn't realized. The first way I use Procreate is to plan out my designs. For example, I was doing this shell artwork, and I had a bunch of different types of shells that I wanted to add into the artwork. I wanted to kind of plan where they were going to be on the page before I started doing any actual drawing. All I had to do was create a canvas that was the same dimensions as my artwork, and then I could import shell references. I could delete the backgrounds. For this, I just used the automatic tool to select the background and delete it, and then I could move the shells around the page using the transform tool to kind of figure out where I wanted everything placed. Sometimes I'll also use Procreate to kind of test out a couple different options before I make a final decision. So for example, I had this tulip painting and I was trying to decide what color to paint the background of it. So I just took a scan of it, put it into Procreate, deleted the white background, and then I could test all the different options to see what color looked best with my painting. Of course, I also love Procreate for quick thumbnail sketches as well. Depending on your preference, you might prefer to do these in a physical sketchbook, but personally, I just love how quick and easy it is to plan something out and do little sketches in Procreate. I can really easily just press undo and change whatever I just did, or I can select something and move it to another part of the page. It's just really easy to quickly work through a bunch of different options without having to erase and redraw on a physical piece of paper. Actually, one of the first things that got me into using Procreate for my traditional art was gridding my reference photos. I almost always use Procreate to have my reference up while I'm working traditionally, just because I don't really prefer to print it out. Sometimes I feel like the colors aren't the same, and it's just easier to put a grid on it and put it up on my iPad. I can quickly create a canvas the same size as my paper, add the reference image, and then add the grid. I add the grid by clicking on the Actions tab, toggling the drawing guide, and clicking Edit Drawing Guide. Here I can change the grid size to inches. I like to do it in 1-inch increments, but that's up to you. I turn the opacity and thickness all the way up and change the color of my lines. I prefer to keep the lines a bright red or pink so that they're easy to see. Speaking of references, something that I like to do when I'm doing a landscape is I turn on the Gaussian blur in Procreate, so it just blurs my image a little bit. The reason that I like to blur my photo is I find that with landscapes, I struggle not focusing too much on the details. So when it's blurred, I'm just focusing on the main shapes and values. And then as I move throughout the painting, I can turn down the blur and just focus more on the details. I love using Procreate to help me with my color theory, and I use it in two main ways. The first is I use it to help me properly match the colors that I'm mixing to my reference photo. I specifically struggle a lot whenever I'm trying to mix whites, grays, or blacks, because a lot of the times it's not just white, gray, or black. There's a mix of another color added in. So sometimes just using my own eyes, I have a hard time figuring out what exactly I should be mixing. When I'm using the iPad, I can just use the color selector tool to select the color on my reference photo. And then if I go click in the top corner, I can kind of see what colors are being used to create that color in the reference photo. I also use it to find color schemes that work together, especially if I'm trying to add in a color that's not necessarily in my reference. If you go into the Harmony tab, you will see that you can actually see up to 5 color schemes. So if I want to choose a color to accent my pink tulip here, but I'm not sure what color to use, I can look through the color schemes and see if there's anything I like. For this, I really liked the analogous color scheme, so I decided to add in some yellow to the artwork. Finally, I use Procreate to check the accuracy of my traditional artworks. So for example, I might take my reference photo and then take a photo of my drawing, and I can put them both in different layers in Procreate and turn down the opacity of one of them. Then I can compare them and see how accurate my drawing is to the original. I also use it to check the accuracy of values in my paintings. So as you can see with this red rock painting, I took a photo of my painting and then put the reference photo in Procreate, and I turned them both to a grayscale, and that way I could see if my values were about the same or if I needed to change any of them. I hope you can use one or two of these tips for your traditional art. Let me know in the comments if there's any other ways you use Procreate to help you with your art. In the description below, you can check out my Instagram, website, Etsy shop, and my Teachers Pay Teachers. Thanks for watching.